come here to share with us some of his insights about programming. And Amir is the co-founder and lead tech developer for Plurk. And I know many of you are active Plurk users, so maybe you will also get to see, what talents behind the creation of such an interesting platform. And many of you were, well, I was very surprised to find that Amir is only 25. So, much younger than some of you here. And so I guess the point is that you should be motivated to do something similar. Okay, so without further ado, I'm giving the microphone to Amir.
Thank you, Jane. And thanks for coming here today. So my topic is on creative programming and how we can be more creative as programmers. So it's like partially about creativity and partially about programming and how they work together. It doesn't work. Oh yeah.
It does.
So why did I choose to speak about creativity? I think creativity is a very important subject, and it's much more important than speaking about technology or like startups or the way to scale to millions of users, because I think creativity is something that is important now and will be like 20, 30 years from now. And most of us as programmers will work hopefully for like about 30, 40 years. So it's important, I think, to focus on bigger issues than just like programming languages or like functional programming or frameworks, because they come and go. But if you can be creative and if you can innovate and come up with good ideas, then you can just use different things and just excel throughout your lives. So that's why I talk about it, and also because I myself want to be a more creative person. So we can ask ourselves, what is creativity? And actually on Wikipedia it is stated that you can define creativity or the creative process in 100 different ways. So let's just take one of them, which I think applies how I think about creativity. And it's stated that creativity is a mental process involving the discovery of new ideas or concepts or new associations of existing ideas or concepts, fueled by the process of either conscious or unconscious insights. So what it basically means is like it's innovation, and you get some kinds of insights and you do things in a unusual manner. So I think not many programmers focus on this, and they are just and maybe, I mean, our education and the way that businesses are looking on programmers is just like robots. You get a task and then you just come with one solution. But a lot of times you can solve things in 1,000 different ways. So let's take an example of how I used the creative process to come up with a really good solution to a very hard problem, and that relates to Plurk. So how many of you know what Plurk is? Most of you, which is good. So yeah, so on Plurk you have like timelines where you can see your friends' messages, and yeah, so it's like status updates, and everything happens in real time, so you get like a lot of messages throughout the day. And the problem with this is that those timelines grow very fast, so you have like a lot of data that keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And the way that social networks work is that you extend them, so you have like all your friends posting on your timeline, so the data grows a lot, and on millions users this is a huge problem. And a lot of like startups like Twitter have faced a problem with scaling. and we have as well. So what is the problem? It's exponential data growth. As you get more users, you get more data, they get more connected, and their timeline just grow and grow in size. So an easy way to solve this problem is just say, okay, we are going to buy a data center and just throw like thousands of machines at the problem. But yeah, for us, it wasn't really an option because we aren't venture funded, so we can't really throw millions of dollars like some startups do and solve this. So we came up with a creative solution, and that's basically like cheating, or a cheating solution. So most users aren't aware of this, but timelines are a fixed size, so you can't go back that much in time, and you can actually only go back at a certain degree. I think maybe 500 Plurks, I think is the current limit. And we made this so we could scale easier, because then your data grows, or timelines grows like linearly, or something that resembles linear growth instead of exponential. And this makes it much easier to scale. So this kind of solution isn't apparent because you are only like solving a tiny bit of the problem. But for most users that use the service, they only care about the recent data. So there are no reasons to solve things that grow exponentially and throw like lots of money and come up with like really complex solutions. So this is like a great way that the creative process works, I think, and that you can come up with some insights that that simply solve problems in a great way. So this is why I then ask, how can we become more creative? Because it's apparent that there are some really good things about being creative as a programmer, especially if you can like bypass these kinds of problems and just come up with this faster. I mean, it took us some time to come up from this to this. And I think there are ways to do this, and but unfortunately we aren't promoting those ways that much. And Pablo Picasso said this, and he's a great Spanish painter. All children are artists. The problem is how to remain artists once we grow up. I think this is like a fundamental thing, is that we are all born creative, but like our education and our work really kills creativity. And I could go like in a longer rant about this, but I have a good story about this, and it's that I actually almost failed programming in high school. And I did this because I solved a much harder problem than the teacher gave me. And when he rated my solution, he said, "You didn't solve the problem I gave you, so you don't get a good grade." And I was like much better than him at programming, and I knew like a lot more than him. So yeah, I don't know. It's just an example, but I think it resembles a lot about how education and how also businesses are structured. They don't promote creativity, and they actually, in most cases, kill it. So now we will see at how great people, and especially creative people, play and explore. And I think that's a main theme of creativity. It's the ability to play with ideas and explore different fields. So here we see again a series of paintings from Picasso, where he tries to draw the bull in its most essential parts, and he ends up with a painting with 12 strokes. And this isn't really like art, but it's a process he uses a process of exploring different things and playing around with different ideas. And in programming, this is very important as well. And we will see here why and how an expert programmer, which I'm a very big fan of, is Peter Norvig. He is a director of research at Google, and he has been programming for over 30 years. And he's very, very good. You should check out his website. He has a lot of great articles on programming. We will see how he implements Google's spell checker and how he does it like in a really amazing way. So Google has a spell checker that uses statistics, and it works really well, and it works across languages. You have probably used it when you couldn't spell something. So let's take a test here and see what you think. How many lines of Python does it take to implement this kind of spell checker? And you have three options. One is around 10,000, another is around 1,000, and another is around 100. So when I ask you, you raise your hands if you think the answer is the correct one. So how many of you do think that this takes 10,000 lines of code? Not many? Around 1,000? Yeah, some. Around 100? So he does this in 20 lines of code. And this is pretty amazing. And this is like, I think, one of the most beautiful spell checkers there is. And the thing about this spell checker is that it isn't about Python, really. It's not like Python is a magical language, but it's more about the idea behind the spell checker. Because a lot of people have implemented this spell checker in Java, in Scala, in Haskell, and they have all the solutions are under 200 lines of code. So this means that you don't really have to write a lot of code to experiment and play around. You can do with less. And on the net you can find like expert programmers and see how they just implement the most essential things and get away with it. So here I will showcase you one of my examples which I did. This is a graph database that's implemented in Python using Redis. And it's implemented in under 40 lines of code. And I did it maybe in 30 minutes. And it can easily scale to few millions nodes. So you can use this graph database to do like recommendation engines and play around with recommendation in general, or machine learning or whatever, where you need a graph database. This is also open source, and I think I follow GitHub, and it's like a social network for programmers, where you can easily share code, you can easily fork code, and like comment, and a lot of really talented programmers are using GitHub. So I think more people should like just play around with different things. I mean, I don't really use a graph database yet, and I implemented mostly to showcase how it could be done using Redis. But